computer, I think. Right, yes, good morning everyone. Welcome to the next instalment of these monthly breakfast meetings. For those that have been before, you know the drill, welcome back. For those that are new, the whole purpose of this effectively is just you leave being better prepared to make smart decisions with your money. Every month I'll be presenting on a different financial topic. Today is obviously around investing for children and how we can go about doing that. Next month, as an example, I'll be doing one all around kind of end of tax year planning opportunities, all on my website, financialmentality.com, if you wanted to register. But as I say, today's topic is around investing for children. And in a second, I'll just get everyone to kind of quickly introduce themselves, what brought you here today, and more specifically, if you've got any kind of questions you want answering during the course of the call. Normally I have about an hour set aside, might be less depending on what we get through today. But so the whole point of this is giving you the tools and techniques in terms of how best to invest for our children, looking at the different kind of tax wrappers and the pros and cons of each. But I'd like you to think about is not necessarily how we can go about investing for our children as a kind of means to an end, but also investing with them. Yeah, really getting our children involved in the process as a kind of learning exercise. I think this whole thing around financial education is something that's missed in schools. Certainly when I was going through kind of GCSEs and A-levels, there was no sort of kind of soft financial education skills taught to me, how to manage money, simple things like compound interest. So the more we can pass these on to the next generation, the better, in my opinion, so that they can really start using that compounding effect and using the asset of time, which is obviously something that they have a lot of, I'd imagine, being a child. Children have lots and lots and lots and lots of time. And of course, when you're looking at investing, that is one of your biggest allies. And I'll be touching upon that a bit later on in terms of what a drastic effect just investing small amounts of money per month, not talking massive amounts, 25, maybe £50 a month, more if you can afford it, and what effect that will have for a child, not only when they reach the age of 18, which is when they get to access a lot of these types of investments, but perhaps when they actually get to retirement themselves and what that pot might look like. Ultimately, that is giving these children a massive step ahead in the right direction. So you're not only giving them tools and techniques in terms of how to do this, but you're giving them a massive financial leg up to, I don't know, get them onto the property ladder, for example, or pay for school fees or university fees. So that's what my agenda is really for today. As I say, what I'd love to do right now is just kind of go around the room, and I'll go from the person that's first on my screen, which is David. So quickly introduce yourself, any questions you've got, and almost what kind of brought you here today. So, yeah, David, over to you, mate.
So good morning, my name's David Hudson. I am from the HR department Clapham, and we are in the business of preventing people problems. My interest today is to understand how I might invest for a child that's not mine, maybe a family member or a close friend's child that I want to gift for the future.
Fantastic. Okay. Short answer to that, David, is most investments do allow you to do that. As a kind of a family friend, let's say, for example, you can invest into a junior ISA for another child. That's completely up to you, but I'll touch upon more about that later on. But short answer is you can do that for most tax wrappers.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, Steve Bannell here. I'm a solicitor at Han & Co. Here, though, really kind of personal capacity. I've got a little niece, so similar to David, interested in schemes and policies for a child that isn't my own, but looking to the future, who knows what might happen. Also interested to know kind of what you can invest for under 18s for your own children.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Okay, I'll be covering both of those off. Thanks so much, Steve. Paul, I know you're out on a busy road, but are you able to...
It's all right. It's all right. That's okay. I stopped just before Clapham High Street. Yeah, this is Paul. This is Paul from Eden Limited, a property development company. The reason why I'm here is because I've until now been a bit lame in terms of investing for my 3-year-old daughter. in the sense that it's not structured at all. I have that ad hoc thing of just earning enough money just so I'm okay. And my family are okay, but nothing structured, and there's no strategy behind investment for my business. That's it.
Okay, so you've got a 3-year-old child then, and you're looking for some sort of structured investment strategy for her.
Yes, of course.
Brilliant. Okay, cover that off then. Thanks so much, Paul. Tegan.
Hi, I'm Tegan. I work for a nanny recruitment agency, so working with nannies and families. And yeah, just wanted to understand a little bit more about investing for children, and hopefully being able to point some clients in David's direction that might be interested in hearing a bit more about it and getting started for their children.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tegan. Now, Linda, are you with us? I know your video's off. But, oh yeah, lovely. There you go.
Morning, David.
Morning.
Hi, guys. My name's Lyndall. I work currently as a general manager. Last year became self-employed after all the COVID redundancies, etc. So basically project management, anything to do with operations and front of house. I'm here today because I'm 36 weeks pregnant with my first child. So I thought I'd get a head start on understanding what I can do for my
Brilliant.
kid.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done. That's awesome news. Thanks for coming
Having a
on today.
coronial.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, brilliant. I'll cover that off then. Okay, lovely. Thanks so much for that. Right, who we got then? Tony, are you with us? Oh no, you said you can't. Right. Do you want to maybe if you've got any questions, put in the chat box, and I'll cover that off later. And Christine.
Hi, it's Christiane.
Sorry, Christiane. Sorry.
Hi. So yes, quite similar to I think what other people have mentioned. I have nephews. I've got 3 nephews who I'm interested in investing in. So far, I've bought them each premium bonds. I just thought it might be something nice to start off with, as it's quite straightforward. I'm also wanting some information for myself for the future. I don't have any kids right now, but I would like to know what I could do in the future when I.
Fantastic. Okay, so 3 nephews currently with premium bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps what else you can be doing for them. Do you want me to actually cover off premium bonds in this call for you, or do you kind of understand how they work already?
Because I just did some research and I thought it's quite straightforward and easy to do, but I wouldn't want to know maybe what could do now. Maybe I could add some more money, or if you maybe you might suggest to do something else, so that'd be nice as well. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Lovely. Can do. Okay. Thanks so much. So that's Christiane. I'm awful. Christiane. So I'm awful about saying this name. So sorry about that. And I'm going to get this wrong, but I'll try my best. Fishaka, is that?
Hiya, morning.
There you go.
Hiya. Sorry, I'm just on my walk. Yeah, right. I'm a single mom, a clinical manager in the NHS, and I've got a 2.5-year-old. I haven't really done anything yet. So the only thing I've done is like any money he gets gifted, just literally put it into a saving account. But that is it. And so really looking to see what I can do or what the best way is going forward. Really looking for a starting point. Yeah,
okay. So most of what I have planned for today covers us a lot of these kind of questions, kind of ultimately very kind of high level. Actually, I'll tell you what, I'll start sharing my iPad, and what I'm going to do, rather than going through kind of death by PowerPoint, I thought better just to kind of scribble ideas and notes, and you guys can follow that way. So power technology, hopefully this works.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? Because I'm going to be driving shortly. Is this going to be recorded just in case I can't see some of the slides or whatever?
It will be, yes, it will be recorded, and I'll be putting it onto my YouTube channel later on today at some point. So yes, more kind of, yeah. So definitely you can have a look at that later on. Okay, so can everyone see this okay?
Yep.
Apologies in advance for my terrible iPad handwriting, but there we go. So let's have a look at this. So how can I invest for kids, niece, invest for other people, and gifting rules? Right, okay. So fundamentally, when you're coming to invest for children, There are 3 ways of doing that. And when I say invest, you're putting money into the stock market for either your child or niece and nephew, or for the basis of someone else. 3 primary ways of doing it. The first way, which a lot of you probably already know about, is something called a junior ISA, or what's called a JISA for short. That's the first way. Okay, I'll touch upon that a bit more level later on. The second way is something called a junior pension. It's commonly known as a kind of a SIP, a self-invested personal pension. Okay. And then the third way, I'm sure a lot of you would know about this, is putting into a trust for a child. It's called a bare trust. Again, I'll cover those 3 in a bit more detail in a minute. What do you really want to consider when thinking about which one is best for you? Because they each will have their pros and cons ultimately. Okay. The first key one to consider is, when do you want to have access to that money? Because, sorry, yeah.
I think it's a couple of things.
Yeah.
Potentially when it comes to education, at that point, depending on what your personal circumstances are, and how you can financially support them to, going through the degree or further education, potentially getting independent for maybe paying off the loans or getting onto the property market or something.
Yes.
That's going to be fruitful for them going forward.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, so in terms of education and property markets, the junior ISA would be far better than the pension. As I'm sure most of you know, with a pension, you are restricted in terms of when you get access from that money. Certain rules dictate that you won't be able to get access until after 55. That age is actually going up. It will be 57 probably in a few years' time. So that's something to bear in mind. With a junior ISA, for example, that child will get access to that money at the age of 18. The same with a bare trust. It becomes their money. And that brings into its own maybe issues, because I had a chat with Steve about this last night. When your child is very young, do you want to give absolute control to that child when he or she reaches a certain age? Something to consider. Because I do know situations whereby parents have kind of gifted their child all this money, they turn a certain age, things go wrong, they can't then say, right, I want that money back.
Now, I may sound like a really harsh person, but in my opinion, maybe I would like to have some form of control, because I know of children who go off the rails. They think they've got all this lump of money, they don't realize how if it takes them astray on the wrong path. Whereas if you've got some form of control, you know you can potentially hand it over at a time where they are set in their lives and they're going to use it using their heads.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad you said that. Yeah. So if a child goes off the rails, as you've said, that is something that you really want to consider. And on that respect, it might be actually better to keep the investments in your name. Yeah, so with all of these, you've obviously got an adult ISA, you've got an adult pension, you can set up a different form of trust. So that's always something important to consider. When you want access to that money,
How does that work when it comes to, like, when it comes to gifting, and you've got like I don't know the ins and outs, but you've got 7 years, God forbid, if something happened to you, then the whole inheritance tax avoidance and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there are gifting rules, and I was going to touch on it later, but I'll talk about it now. So per year, within the kind of realms of IHT, for those that don't know, that's inheritance tax, you can gift £3,000 per year per parent. Okay. You can use the previous year if you haven't used it, so 6,000. Or what the government says, you can effectively gift out of excess income. Now, it's a bit more tricky to work out, and it's something that the accountant will be able to help you out with. But you work out the level of income you're receiving from your job. You take off your expenses, whatever's left, you can then gift that as long as it doesn't affect your day-to-day living. That's what they stipulate. Now, I think that's not very kind of concrete. It's a bit of a grey area. You can technically gift that money away as long as it doesn't affect your standard of living. Does that kind of answer your question? So there are certain rules and stipulations in terms of how much the government actually allow you to gift away, because ultimately what you're doing then is you're reducing, as you've alluded to, is you're reducing the size of your estate, aren't you, for IHT purposes when you die, when you're older. So the government have caught on to that. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does.
Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. But that's only relevant to parents. So, Stephen Dave, for example, if you wanted to put money into your niece or other person's junior ISA, for example, you can do that. That £3,000 rule only applies to parents. You can probably guess why the government have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying we can't set up that JISA? No, it's only the parents or the guardians who can set it up. We could invest in theirs.
That's it. So parent or legal guardian can set up the junior ISA or the pension, but you can. But if you want to, Steve, if you want to give someone money to put into their ISA, you go for it, mate. If you want to put money into my ISA.
Yeah, we were like.
Oh, sorry. Was that a question, or was that just noise in the background? I think that's just noise in the background. Yeah. So Steve, in answer to the question, yes, you're correct. That's what would happen. Okay. Any other questions?
David, this is Paul.
Yeah.
Just quickly. So if you gift the money to your nephew or niece, that's like giving to anyone. So that niece or nephew would have to prove that's not a source of income, so they don't get personally taxed on it. What's the limit that you're allowed to give to anyone else other than your children in terms of getting taxed on that?
There's not, but that gifting allowance is only applicable to parents.
So I can give someone like 500 grand and there's no liability on that tax wise. Okay, fine.
It's just applicable to parents. Yeah.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Say if you gifted. So if I say, I don't know, I decided to give £3,000 each year. So right now I give 6,000 because I haven't done anything, so I can use the previous year. I don't know. Say 5 years time, my circumstances drastically change and they're in a bit of a dire situation, and I need access. Obviously, whatever I have eventually becomes my child's anyway. But to get me out of a black hole, I need access, and potentially that, say, argument's sake, that's the only fund I've got access to, because I don't know, I've used everything else up or explored all the other avenues. And if I've set that JISA up under my fund's name, can I then access that or not?
No, and that's the difficulty. But when you're gifting money, you're relinquishing control of that money. And you know, when you come into
only at the age of 18.
Sorry, you went a bit muffled at the end there. Only at the age of 18.
When he's got access, for instance, only then he could say, okay, well, there you go, Mum. I know you need it at the moment. Here it is.
Yeah, he could give it back. Yeah.
But till that point, it's locked up.
Until that point, it's locked up. Now, the child can get access at age 16, but it turns into a cash ISA. So you can then, but then you will get full control at the age of 18. So you can turn it into cash ISA at 16. But ultimately, when you're giving the money away, that is no longer your money. And this is one of the kind of biggest hurdles, I suppose, when talking about the complex area that is estate planning and IHT is what to do. Do you want to give the money away and still have control over it? In which case, kind of a trust environment would be better. and there are different types of trusts, and probably I don't want to label the kind of the tax and trust topic on this particular call unless you really want me to, because it get a bit complex. But essentially you've got you've got a bare trust, which is what I mentioned earlier, which is great for kids. But if you still want control, a different type of trust, like a discretionary trust, whereby the beneficiaries can be changed throughout the duration of an investment, would be more applicable. But for children, you want a bare trust because of tax purposes. I'm going to talk about that a bit later on, so I'll stop there. But yeah, it is something to consider. When you give that money away, that money is no longer yours. And as I said earlier, you don't know what that child is going to turn into when they're age of 18. I'm sure he or she will be absolutely lovely. They'll be all fine, but you never know. So maybe sometimes best to keep it in your own name, but that's obviously down to yourself and your own circumstance. Okay.
I think personally, I think I may be interested to learn a little bit more about the trust, but obviously appreciate what everybody else is looking for, maybe to pick this up outside at a later point.
More than happy, and it goes for everyone else as well. More than happy to have half an hour now with you after this call, and we can talk about that in a bit more detail. Okay. Cool. Lovely. Right. Share my screen again, and then I'll just continue. Share my screen. There we go. Okay. Lovely. Okay, so when you want access, key. Second thing, we want to think about tax advantages. But also the limits. Because you might be thinking, well, actually, a junior ISA is the best route for me. But every tax year, the government stipulate how much we can actually put into these tax-free environments. So as an example, junior ISA, there is a £9,000 allowance each tax year. And with a pension, it's 3,600, which is actually, you only have to actually put in 2,880, and the government essentially grosses that amount up. So those are the total allowances you get per tax year into certain investments. But with a trust, for example, you can put in as much as you want. So there's no allowances on those. So tax advantages, something else to consider. Pensions and junior ISAs are completely tax-free from things like income tax and capital gains tax. As we've already alluded to, it also takes money out of your estate, which can be particularly very good for certain families, but that's something to consider. Okay. Any kind of questions on that? Again, I will talk about that in more detail a bit later on. No, okay. And the third one, we've already kind of touched upon this actually, but who do you want to manage the investments? To manage. Okay, and that basically alludes to, do you want to manage yourselves, or do you want it to be in your child's name? And we've already spoken about that, so I won't labour that point much more. Okay. So now we're just going to talk about these three different areas in a bit more detail. So with junior ISAs, some of you may or may not have heard something called a child trust fund, which is effectively very similar. Governments gave you a bonus at the start, but these child trust funds closed back in 2011 and were replaced by these junior ISAs. Now, you've effectively got two types. So you've either got cash, like you do with an adult ISA, or you've got a stocks and shares junior ISA. Okay, now as the name suggests, junior ISA just has cash in it. And then depending on the bank or building society you're with will give you a rate of interest applicable to the interest rate that's available at the time. On average, you'll probably be getting the region about 0.6% on a cash ISA. You might be getting more with a kind of maybe a fixed term ISA where you can't actually access the money for, say, after a year or 5 years. Then you've got, which is what we manage, stocks and shares ISAs, which is putting money into the markets, investing into companies, putting money into funds and portfolios. Now, obviously, depending on how good that portfolio fund performs, you might be looking at the region of maybe kind of 8 to 11% year on year. But obviously, with a stocks and shares ISA, your money is at risk. Okay. So as a quick diagram, just going to illustrate my point further. You can put in the maximum amount, which is £9,000 per year. Okay. When the child reaches 18, he or she can then access that money, and that money is now theirs. All the money will grow completely tax-free. And then from the age of 18, you can take the money out whenever you want. Okay, so access, and is also tax-free. Okay, so in answer to Paul's, I think it was question earlier, or someone mentioned about schools. This is a prime example of when this could be used. So it could be used, for example, to pay for university fees. Yeah, it could be used to get the child onto the property ladder. Okay. Not private school fees though, because age of 18, but could be used for those reasons. Is everyone clear on how a junior ISA works? It's pretty straightforward. Anyone got any questions?
Yes, David. One sec, Paul. Yeah. I just wanted to say, just in a general question, do these rules and everything you're talking about apply to also, are there separate rules for adopted children as well?
For adopted children?
Yeah, does that count as your child?
Yes, it does.
In the sense of this conversation? Okay, fine.
Yes,
cool.
yeah, it will do.
And stepchildren as well. Is that the same thing?
Yes.
You can answer that later. I just wanted to know, for the purposes of this discussion, we're talking also about adopted children, for sure.
We are certainly for adopted children.
Yeah, okay.
I'm 90% sure about stepchildren, but if you bear with me, I'll get back to you on that one.
Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, thanks, David. Cheers.
No worries. Okay, any more before I carry on? We are already half past. Okay, so that's junior ISAs. Now, in the words of Blue Peter, here's something I made earlier. Pros and cons of these junior ISAs. Family-friendly investing. As I mentioned earlier, what you can really do with this is get your kids involved in the whole process. Really teach them what's going on here, kind of maybe the different companies that you're investing in, the different funds, get them involved in that, get them excited, get them interested, so that kind of almost the earlier they start learning about this stuff. I know from my own from my own life, I'd love to know about this stuff when I was a kid, get involved early. Tax efficient, as I've already said, great for education and planning. Friends and family can gift, something we've already been talking about. Great for teaching child how to invest. Now, the downside, as I say, child has control at the age of 18, and you also have an annual cap on contributions. This is at that £9,000 level. So don't want to labour those points anymore. Any questions on any of those? I think that's we've covered off most of that already. Okay, let's carry on. So the second most common way you can invest for children is putting money into a pension or junior self-invested personal pension. Now, for those that don't know, when you're putting money into pensions, you get tax relief on the contributions going in. Okay, so the government would gross up any pension contribution that you put in by 20%. So the maximum you'd want to put in per tax year is 2,880, grossed up to 3,600 per tax year. Okay, so same again. When you're paying in, you get 20% tax relief going in on any contribution. Now, current rules stipulate that that child won't get access until the age of 55. So again, what I said earlier, if you're wanting accessibility, a pension might not be the best option for your child. But certainly if you're wanting it to just lock away, put small sums of money in per month, perhaps, a pension might be better than an ISA. You know, at least I suppose then your child would have obviously matured by that age and will be better able to maybe manage that money, but something to consider, accessibility. Now, as with any normal pension, at that age, they'll get 25% of that as a tax-free lump sum, tax-free cash. But all that growth in the pension will again be tax-free. Okay, so very tax efficient vehicle to be utilising. And then after the age of 55, they then get access to that money. Any income from a pension is taxable at their marginal rate. On the majority of cases, when people are in retirement, they're a basic rate taxpayer, so earning less than £50,000 a year. So in most circumstances, I suppose, people then will again be charged that 20% income tax rate. So the key differences are the tax relief going in, but also the accessibility issues with pensions. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? But the one key benefit of a pension, and this is something that I did want to share with you guys, is, how can we share this? The drastic effect that compounding has when you're investing for a long period of time. So this is a real simple calculator that you can use. I'll share this in the chat box. The calculator site just goes to show, so even if you put in, I don't know, let's say you're putting in £50 per month for a child from day one. Now, as I said earlier, when you're investing, you're probably going to expect in the region of about 8 to maybe 10% year on year, depending on how well the funded portfolio does. May do a lot better, may do a lot worse, but let's give an average of 8% for this. Let's say for this example, we're investing into a junior ISA. So we've got the full 18 years ahead of us, and we're putting in roughly, I don't know, £50 a month. Does anyone want to hazard a guess in terms of what that'll be worth at the age of 18? Shout some numbers out. You've all gone shy.
200K.
Sorry?
200K.
200K?
200.
Any advances on 200?
Yeah.
Any advances on 200? We'll take 200
Yeah.
then. Okay, so £50 a month, 18 years. Not quite 200, 24,000. So you're not going to be quite a millionaire by the age of 18 at that rate. So 18 years, interest rate of 8%, £50 will get you 24,000. Okay. What is interesting though is kind of almost at the age of 17 or 18, your interest is going to be more than the amount you actually put in. Okay, so 18 years, yeah, I think, you know, pretty happy with that if I was a child, like 25 grand, you know. But let's say you're going to be increasing that now to the age of 35. And what impact that might have. 115. What's interesting about that, though, is you can see, and this is again the major impact that compound interest has on your investments. longer time goes on, the more interest you are earning in comparison to the amount you're putting in. Yeah, exponential growth. You can see the massive impact that that has over time. Now, once that child reaches retirement, age of 55, what's that pot worth? About £600,000. Just £50 a month into a junior pension is going to give that child around 600 grand worth of pension monies. Yeah, so massive, massive leg up there. Massive step forward in the right direction. I doubt that child would need much more really putting into a pension, to be honest. Let's say you increase that now to, I don't know, 150. At age of 55, what's that going to be worth? Just shy of 2 million. That's a lot of money. Yeah. But again, I don't really want to labor the points about, you know, how much you're putting in. You know, that is obviously down to you and your affordability criteria. What I do want to labor though, and this is key, as I said earlier, time is your major major asset with things like this. How much the interest earned increases during the duration of that investment. So something to bear in mind. And that's why I suppose looking at a pension might be better than nicer, really taking use and advantage of that asset, which is time. Okay. Any thoughts on that for anyone here? Is that shocked anyone? Is that kind of, did you already know that already? Or is that kind of, you know?
I knew quite figures. I mean, it certainly shows the benefit of long-term investment. Absolutely.
Yeah, it really starts to ratchet up after that 18-year mark, doesn't it?
I think that's really, really good. It's a really good insight, like Steve said, but I think it just comes down to what is the purpose, what, you know, if they needed access at an earlier stage in their life, for whatever reason, have they got that? It's all great having that at 55, but do you want to give them something for earlier parts of their life in case they're struggling or whatever? And I think it's just trying to weigh it up. Or is it possible to do both parallel to one another, depending on your affordability?
Yeah, that's do both if you can afford to do that. Like a child, have a lot of money put in for them. But yeah, there's no reason why you can't do both. Certainly. Okay, one more thing to cover off. I'm just
David, question.
Yeah. Go on, Paul.
Dave, question from me. Yeah, Paul. So the pension, when you're investing in the pension for your child, there's literally no way of taking that money out before 55. Is there no like early repayment charge, you know, sort of thing?
You'll be taxed the 9, but if you take it earlier, there are massive tax disadvantages. You at least 55% will come off before any other thing. Then you'll get early withdrawal charges and everything else from the provider. You'll probably end up with about 60 or 70% of the pot being depleted if you do take it out before 55. There are certain ways that you can take it. So let's say for example, you know, you or your child gets terminally ill or something like that. Yeah. And there are reasons why you can take money out earlier, but you know, in normal circumstances you can't. There'll be a massive tax liability plus further charges for taking the money out.
And God forbid, if that child like passes away early, does that money go back to the parents, or does that just go to the state or someone? Okay.
Yeah, so a very good point. Yeah, so any pension, no matter if it's a junior pension or an adult pension, they are all wrapped into a master trust. Any pension. So what that means is that all that money is effectively sitting outside of your estate, whether not be an adult or a junior one. So before the age of 75, any money passes on to the chosen beneficiaries completely tax-free. So when you set up a pension, you fill out a form called the expression of wishes. So what that child might, now again, this would be for the parents to set up, but you wouldn't necessarily want the parents to be beneficiaries because that's putting money back into their estate. You maybe want it to go to another child or a cousin or another family member. But that would be something to set up initially, and it can obviously be changed throughout the duration of the investment as well.
Fine. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions from anyone else?
Yeah, sorry, just picking up on that. I think you answered at the end, but I wasn't sure. Your intention of the beneficiary. So if your child had passed away, God forbid, you've got the pension set up, but then maybe you have a second child. Can you put in that should something happen, the benefit of the trust passes to the second child, so it doesn't go back into estate, and therefore you have to pay inheritance tax when they're inheriting?
No. So you can change the expression of wishes whenever you like. Yeah. So you would effectively change the legality of that pension when that second child is born, and then get it added to that form, or get it added to the will. You know. But yes, that's what you would do in those circumstances. And then you can also divide up the pension. You know, you say you got two other kids, 50-50 between the two of them. So it doesn't all have to go 100% to one person.
Right, cheers.
Okay, so the final point then for me to cover off, again, I've done pros and cons here, but we've covered most of this already. Power of compounding, tax efficient, tax rebate on contributions. Again, teaches child how to invest. Child will have a head start. Disadvantage, won't have access until retirement, and you also have that cap on annual contributions. Okay, pros and cons there. Final point then, we have a bare trust. Okay, so this is where it starts to get slightly more confusing, ever so slightly. Now with a bare trust, you put into your money, but you can put in an unlimited amount. Oh, we've got someone coming in. Could be good for some people, not so good for others. Now, a bare trust isn't tax efficient, unfortunately. But what you do take advantage of, and this is something for the parents to take advantage of, is your child's personal allowances. Okay, so the current tax year, 20 to 21, stipulates that every person, adult or child, will have a £12,500 income tax personal allowance. So effectively, it will be tax-free up to that amount, but you also get a £12,300 allowance for capital gains tax, CGT. So up to those levels, it will be tax-free. So again, a point made earlier, getting more money out of your estate, giving that to the child, this may be a good solution for that. Okay. The only other main thing to note is that from the age of 18, again, that child will have full control and access to that money. But just to kind of repeat myself, the main reason parents might choose this option is to take advantage of the child's personal allowances. So let's say you're a bit of an affluent family or whatever, but it's not tax-free. So this could be a way of kind of, you've utilised the junior ISA, you've utilised the junior pension, well, where do I go next? This could be an obvious route to that. Now, earlier we talked about accessibility. The main advantage of this, I'm sure I've got it written down here, is you get access to this money whenever you want. So to pay for things like private tuition, school fees or whatever, or school fees when the child is young, this would be an ideal situation for that. The parent can take money out as long as it's for the benefit of the child. So you can't just take money out and then go shopping. You can take money out for the school fees. So you haven't got that, reach of 18 kind of cap. Does that make sense to everyone? So quick go through the ponds. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, go on. Was that a question or?
No, that's just from the knowledge.
No, it was. So pros, IHT saving, no cap on contributions, access the money at any time, again, as long as it's for the benefit of the child, ideal for school fees, Child allowances will shelter those investments. But again, child gets access to all that money at age of 18 and not ordinarily tax-free. Okay. Any questions on that before I could quickly go on? I've got one more thing to quickly cover off, and I've got 10 minutes left. What was mentioned earlier, also, so things we've spoken about all this. Other things you might want to start thinking about. Now, what I'm talking about here today is how to invest. You can, however, put money into a children's savings account. You can open as little as £1 in some situations. Advantages with these is you might get preferential interest rates on things like a 12-month fixed period savings account. You can access it whenever you want. You may have to pay tax on the savings interest. So another allowance to bear in mind is everyone gets, if they're basic rate taxpayer, you get £1,000 savings allowance. Anything over that, you do have to start paying tax, but because interest rates are so low today, you would need a cash amount of north of 160,000 before you have to start paying cash on that. So in most instances, you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, you can get access to whenever you want, but that will just be sitting in cash. So over a long period of time, do you want money sitting in cash? It's not working hard for you. If you take into account inflation, it's probably eroding a lot of that value away. The other thing I mentioned earlier was a premium bond, national saving investment. You put into £50,000 max into a premium bond per year, but you're not accruing interest as such on a premium bond. You're just having the ability to basically earn prizes. So anything from the region of £25 up to £1 million, you could effectively win that as a tax-free prize by going into a premium bond. I don't particularly like them. That's my own personal take on it. I think, if you're going to put money away for people, invest. Otherwise, you might as well go and play the national lottery. But if you want to put money into an NSNI premium bond, that is a good way of saving money. If that's what you wanted to do. But just to reiterate my point, these aren't investment vehicles. These are just cash saving vehicles. Any questions on those two before I kind of finish the slides? No? Okay. Lovely. Well, we're kind of coming up to the end there. So has anyone got any kind of last minute questions or thoughts, things you want me to talk about?
I don't know about a question, but I just will say it was really eye-opening, the junior pension side of things. I looked into the junior license. Obviously, David, we discussed that. I've got a niece and I'm putting money away for her. Now, I'm putting that into a separate stocks and shares ISA that I control because I'm not a parental guardian. But, should hopefully have kids in the future. The junior pension is a really incredible scheme that I just wasn't aware of at all. And I'm definitely going to speak to my brother about it later to see if they're doing it. That's really, really useful.
Brilliant. I'm glad I could be of use. I've got a question actually, Tony. Do you make any particular provider for junior ISAs, junior stocks and shares ISAs? Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're wanting to do, Tony. I did do a full hour on analysing different investment platforms, again, on the YouTube channel. Nutmeg, you said, yes, that's a good platform. I think, off the top of my head though, for investing into an ISA, the minimum amounts are actually quite high, about £500. I don't know what they are off the top of my head for a junior ISA though. I can't imagine it'd be that high. For us, for example, it's £75 a month minimum. Hargreaves Lansdown, off the top of my head, again, I think it would be about 100. But with all these different platforms, what you've got to bear in mind is that some of them are kind of do-it-yourself investment platforms like Hargreaves Lansdown. So you go on and you effectively manage that money yourself. So choose the fund managers, choose the platforms. Hargreaves Lansdown are fantastic. I use them myself. They'll point you in the right direction in terms of the best ones to use, depending on your attitude to risk and everything else. Now you have got then platforms like Nutmeg or Moneybox, and Steve, you were talking about that. Some people call them almost like robo advice. So I use a company called Hargreaves Lansdown for one of my ISAs. This question came up there. They are kind of almost robo advice. You can go on and put money into what's generally known as kind of passive investments, whereby you don't actually have a fund manager per se that looks after that money, but more that money will just follow an index funds. I won't talk about those because we've got a few minutes left. But with any of these types of platforms, have a look on them. Have a look at three things. Whether or not they're covered by the FSCS is key. The FSCS will cover you up to £85,000. So if that institution goes under, you are covered by that amount. Regulated by the FCA, yeah. But also kind of, as I said, where they invest in and what their minimum allowances are. Moneybox, for example, will allow you to invest up a minimum of £1, I think it is. Steve, you've used them. Small investments £1. But if you wanted to, Vanguard or another really good company to look at, they offer a full range of these kind of passive index style funds. There's another good one called Plum. Again, one of these kind of robo style investment companies. But yeah, I would just do your own research. Have a look at what the minimums are. Have a look at where your money's invested. If you wanted to kind of pick my brains about any of these kind of investment platforms, give me a call. More than happy to spend half an hour going through them. I'm obviously an advisor with St. James's Place. And the whole point with us is that you get advice, tailored advice, giving you point in the right direction in terms of the right, fund managers and the right investment strategies you might want to start using. The differences between the investment platforms I've used is you don't really get that hand holding. It's a do-it-yourself type of investment. That's clear. Any other questions? So yeah, Tony, if you wanted to give me a call, we can have a proper chat about different providers that you can start using if you wanted to. Any more? We've got a couple of minutes left. How can we contact yourself? Okay, so I'll put my contact details in the chat box just now. That's my email address, 794205553, and that's my phone number for anyone who wants to get in contact. I'll stop that there. Thanks very much for everyone coming along. As I say, next month on the last Wednesday, the actual date eludes me, but next month I'll be doing a talk on tax year end planning. Financialmentality.com is where you'll find all the events, find the link to the recording. And yeah, hopefully this has been of use to you all.
Fantastic. Cheers, David. Thanks a lot.
Thanks ever so much, everyone. Cheers.